On episode 322, we are talking about when is it time to bring in a second in command for your video business so that you can get all of the lower stuff, all of the things that you shouldn't be doing, how to get that stuff off of your plate, because it's holding you back from growing. It's holding you back from enjoying your work, and it's holding you back from making the biggest impact on the world that you were made to do. What's up, friend, and welcome to the Grow Your Video Business podcast. My name is Ryan Herold from Studio Sherpas, and this is the show for corporate filmmakers that want to build the business of their dreams by working on their business and not just in their business. Hey, if you're ready to grow your business, but you're looking for some kind of a roadmap, because as far as I know, there's not a roadmap out there like that you can go buy and, page by page flip through how to grow this video business. I want to give you my 6-figure filmmaker workshop, which will help you get more consistent work, help you command higher rates for your service, and help you build a business that you can scale. Inside of this workshop, I teach some of the best tips and tricks that I've used for building my own 7-figure production business over the past 18 years. And this is my gift to you. Just go to studiosherpas.com/workshop. You can watch the free workshop right now, or maybe you should watch this episode first or listen to it first and then go get the free workshop. You can get it at studiosherpas.com/workshop. My guest today is Cameron Herold. He's no stranger to the show. He's been here before. That's a funny thing to say. He is the mastermind behind hundreds of companies' exponential growth, and he has earned his reputation as the business growth guru. He's built a dynamic consultancy with clients that include a monarchy and a big 4 wireless company. He's the author of 6 books. Just 6 books. Is that all, Cameron? I mean, let's go pick it up. He's also a top-rated international speaker, having spoken on all 7 continents. He's the founder of the COO Alliance, the world's leading network for seconds in command. And he's also the host of the Second in Command, The Chief Behind the Chief podcast, where he interviews COOs and other seconds to share their insights with his listeners. This is a super good episode. Really, really fun to have him back. Lots of good insights. I'm excited to share him and this conversation with you. Let's go. All right, Cameron, hey man, welcome back to the show. Super, super happy to have you back.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm excited about this as well.
Number one, I'm really curious. You're kind of alluding to some story of maybe there was a filmmaker that you knew that was sort of in your circle back in the day or something. Tell us more.
There's 2. There's one that was back in the day, and there's one that is in this day. And they're even tied together. So 20-ish, 21 years ago, my son was born. My son is obsessed with the film industry, wants to get into the filmmaking business, wants to be behind the camera, everything that your kind of video business academy and your new mastermind even covers. But that same year, we went out and we needed to get some training videos for my company, 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And I was the second in command at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. At the time, we only had about 14 employees. When I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. And the training videos that we needed to produce needed to be for a bigger company, but we didn't have any money. So we were this scrappy startup, entrepreneurial hustle, bootstrap shit out of it. And we went out to our network. There was no social media. We couldn't post it on social media. So we just called as many people as we knew who were entrepreneurs. And we said, we need a young, scrappy filmmaker. Probably can't pay him. But he's going to be able to have, his name attached to our brand, right? Yeah. Amazing client. He'll be able to have his name attached to our brand. And we were just kind of getting a little bit of a buzz in Vancouver that year. Anyway, this guy, Jonathan Galbraith, came back. Amazing. I can remember his name 20 odd years later. His company at the time was called Base 2 Media. I don't know what it's called today. He came in and he said, I'll do your filmmaking. The conditions is I have to do it on Saturdays and Sundays only. And if we need to do anything during the week, it needs to be after 7:00 at night. And we're like, okay, we'll do it. But why is that the criteria? Are you in school? He goes, yeah, I'm in school. I'm at Vancouver Film School. I'm going to kind of borrow the equipment at night and on weekends to use it. And we're like, what do you mean borrow it? And he goes, well, it's not stealing it. I'm not really going to sign it out and pay for it, but I'm going to bring it back. So it's not stealing it. I'm just going to kind of borrow it. And we're like, let's do this. So we had this amazing sound crew and lighting and grips and like all this cool setup. And he filmed all these amazing training videos for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And because of that, we were a very early stage reference for him. And because he went through brick walls for us, we did for him too. Anyway, he went on, long story, built a really great business in Vancouver. And I'll send him this podcast when it goes live too, because he'll appreciate it.
That's a fun story. Yes. Reminds me of Better Call Saul. I don't know if you watched that show, but there's the film crew that he's a teacher and he takes the equipment. Yeah. Lots of fun references there. Oh man, I love the work that you do. I feel like the way that you operate, it's so, I've been in business for 18 years, and early on, I think I realized like, man, I got to figure out this operation stuff, like so that I'm not having to do all of the things, because there's way too many things. I'm not best suited to do this work, even though it defaults to me. I'm responsible for it. And we've gone through some seasons in our business. I think it was probably about 7 years ago that I had an employee who came to me. I had just had an administrative assistant leave, and she said, hey, before you freak out, I know this is we've had some turnover in this position. Hang on a second. And she printed off some documents. She came to me, she presented these papers, and the first paper said, or on the top said, how to know when you need a business manager. Read that, I started smiling. I was like, oh man, like all of these things sound so dreamy. Like if I had this in this business, this seems like it would solve like all of my problems. And then we kind of, went on from there, and she said, I want to do this position. And she became our operations director and changed everything. I mean, it literally changed everything for my life, my business. I was able to enjoy the work more. I couldn't believe that somebody else was going to be in charge of hiring and firing and interviewing and checking in with the team day to day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like now I can actually get back to the things that I love doing, the things that I'm good at doing. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like what does that actually take for a person to be like that, and or to identify when it might not be working, that they're doing all of the things.
What you just touched on is exactly the core of my book, The Second in Command. And it's how, as an entrepreneurial organization, this is my new book, it's how any size organization identifies when they need to have a second in command to the CEO or to the entrepreneur, what that person looks like, and then how to bring them into the organization and how to build the best relationship with them, and eventually how to replace them with the next stage second in command as well as your organization scales, right? But I love that you found an article about, how to bring on a business manager. There's another famous article that came out about 15 years ago from Harvard Business Review called The Misunderstood Role of the COO. And it talks about these 7 distinct types of chief operating officers. And they're all very, very different. If you think of the film industry, I don't know all the terms, but if you're a grip, you're a grip, you're a grip, right? And if you're a PA, you're a PA, you're a PA. Or if you're like a director, you're like, the definitions are exactly the same from set to set. Well, a COO, or a second in command, is the exact yin and yang to the entrepreneur. So they're very different. When I was the second in command for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I would have been a horrible second in command for you. I didn't know anything about film. I'm not even really that obsessed with film. My son would probably be better at it. My son would have been horrible at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. The reason I was good at 1-800-GOT-JUNK was I'd built 2 other franchise companies already. I understood franchising. I understood home services. So it's a really strange role. The second thing that you identified was, how do I get rid of all the stuff that I don't love to do, that drain me of energy, so that I can do the stuff that I love to do, which is kind of cool that you see that. The opportunity is to find a second in command who loves to do the stuff that you don't, and who is great at the stuff that you're not, and who doesn't want to work on the stuff that you want to work on, right? They love that other stuff, right? The other part is, what title do you give them? And the important thing is, and everyone listening needs to remember this, keep the titles small. Don't give, if you're a 5-person company, You don't have chief operating officers and chief marketing officers. You don't even have vice presidents yet. At best, you have directors, but you probably have managers. You have like an operations manager, right? A site manager. When you get to be really, really big, you can give out really big titles. But if you give out titles that are too big too early, the people think that they're worth more and they think they should be doing other things and they want to start adding a bunch of people, which isn't really necessary.
Yeah, that's good. And we did find ourselves, I found myself in a weird conundrum after this woman had left and we hired our next one. This person was definitely more a manager. And even though, Lindsay was like, we're just like, I don't know what to call it. Okay, director. Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Whatever. Who cares? Then we realized later, I was like, oh man, like he wasn't even like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
So this is, we're kind of in the middle. My executive assistant let me know last week that this would be like tomorrow's her last day. Pretty unfortunate timing because I have like zero bandwidth for the last 2 weeks, and she's been sick. So that's just added to some of the stress of like, I got to find a replacement.
That's a tough hire.
Doing this. Yes, it really is. So one of the challenges, we're like, okay, personality tests, like let's make sure they're, let's do the Colby, let's do, DISC, like what, like kind of strength finders. Let's just kind of go through, give us as much detail as you can, because what I've found is that I'm a people person. I'm good with it. I like to make friends with everybody, but what I found is that I'm kind of annoying. And people that work closely with me have to be okay with some of my nuances. Where I just, if I assign a task, even though I put it on our little software, if I don't hear anything back from somebody, that task, that open loop stays open in my brain until somebody can. So what? I think it's the same thing with the COO. It's like, wow, that sounds big. That sounds expensive. I don't, if anything, I need another filmmaker to help with my backlog and help.
So again, remember that the book is called The Second in Command. Let's not use the COO title until we have 250 or more employees. Okay. Let's bring the title down to a director of ops or an operations manager. Or now you also said something which is important. Everyone listening right now, if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one. The first key person you need to hire is not a second in command. You don't need an operations manager yet. You need an executive assistant. Get all the admin off, even if it's fractional or a half-time or a virtual part-time executive assistant, get all the admin work off your plate. Get all the lower pay stuff off your plate. My executive assistant's now very highly paid. She'll earn about $95,000 this year. But I just got her to hire an executive assistant in the Philippines to get a bunch of stuff off her plate so she can take some of the bigger projects from me. I'm also going to move her into a slightly different title this year as well, because she's really more of an EA/operations manager or a project manager or director. So I'm going to even give her a title and a pay increase and also to clarify, but really get the executive assistant hired first. Second thing that you talked about, and I love you mentioned Colby and DISC. The Colby profile generates a 4-digit number that explains how the person likes to start projects. In its core, that's what Colby is. So a true second in command, it has a high first or second number. They either start projects by asking a lot of questions because they need to understand us, right? Or they need to put a system or a playbook or a checklist in place to start the project. For you and I, we probably have a very high third number. We're quick starts. We like to execute now, plan later. We're winging it. We're shooting from the hip. We have ideas constantly, right? We're perpetual motion machines. Yeah. We're like a dragon on a leash. And they need to be the brakes for our gas, right? They need to be the person who can ask us a lot of questions, not to debate us, but to catch up with us so they can take it off our plates. So the Colby profile is a critical tool to help you identify the right type of person. Secondly, there used to be an adage years ago that you hire for attitude, train for skill. That's okay in the pre-1990 world where you were growing by 7 or 10% a year. But now you need to hire for attitude and proven skill both. So the attitude is, are they the right core values people? Are they the right culture fit for your organization? Now, you don't want everybody to be like you, but you definitely want everybody to live the core values that they live. whether they're an engineer or an IT or like a salesperson or a marketer, it's the core values alignment that is the cultural fit that you hire for. The next thing that you look for is, have they done the job before, right? My son would be great on any film set in some of the 7 or 8 roles that he's done, right? He was just excited the other day because he got to work on set design and set breakup or something. And I'm like, what is it? What do you mean? He goes, dude, we got to take this old house and splash coffee on the walls to make the walls look old. He goes, no. And then we got to break it all down. And I'm like, that's so he, you know, I mean, like he's got some experience at some things. So you hire the right attitude, the right core value fit, and the right skill set, they're going to do great in their job. That's what you need to hire for in every single role. If it's an operations manager or a vice president of operations or a COO, is they have to match your core values. They have to have the right personality profile, and they have to have the skill set because they've done it before. Right? That's when you really hit the ground running. Brian and I had a very unfair advantage at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Brian was my best man at my wedding 3 months before I started to work for him. So culturally, we were aligned. We knew everything. And we were in a mastermind community. What's your mastermind you're just launching called?
10X Filmmaker.
Yeah, so 10X Filmmaker is like a mastermind community for all these great filmmakers. Brian and I invested to be in a mastermind like that for 4.5 years called the Entrepreneurs Organization. We were in the same forum group for 4 years. So he watched me for 4 years build 2 companies. I watched him build a company. It's like we got to interview each other for 4 years.
Yeah.
So the day I started, we knew everything about each other. The trust was really high. He's like, here, go do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So the key is how, and I teach that in the book, is how do you take that 4.5 year interview? How do you take it down to a 2-month interview? Right?
Right. Yes. So tell me all your secrets. What for somebody that I love, man, I just love how you're saying like there's a lot of like vibing here, because the EA, when somebody's like, oh, Ryan, if you were going to hire somebody, like what would be your first hire? I'm like, oh man, an EA that has any type of project management experience would be gold. Like, oh man, to not have to follow up with a client to ask them menial, like for the sale, like I got to be the guy. Like I'm the one that's most passionate about what we're doing. And, you know, I'm going to talk like way up here vision, but like, oh, we need another round of revisions. And like, hey, that one, like, it's like, oh my gosh, like I should not be in the weeds there. What a waste of time. So somebody says, yes, okay, I've got an assistant. I got some help with email and admin stuff. Now, like, what is the question? Like, at what point should somebody start saying, like, I should really start looking for a second in command? What does that look like for the entrepreneur? It's
when the entrepreneur has so many direct reports or so many parts of the business that they're not working in the areas that give them energy. They're not working in their unique ability. They're not working in their zone of genius. They're spending so much time managing people and holding them accountable and following up on stuff that they're drained, or at the end of the day, they're trying to do their work, right? That's one. The second one is that even if you've got it all going and you're managing all the people well, you're not really having time to develop them, to grow them, to cheer them on, to mentor them, right? Like, again, I keep bringing up my son on film sets. This kid is a gold mine for somebody to hire, especially if that entrepreneur wants to keep growing his skills. Because he will absorb everything, right? He's like a walking encyclopedia of film, super passionate, high core values. If somebody wants to grow his skill sets, dude, you got a second in command that will be powerful, right? But if we only have time to manage them and hold them accountable, at some point people get dispirited and we don't really grow them enough. So that's when you want that second in command, is to free you up to grow people as well.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It's so interesting to the freedom that I experienced when Lindsay was in this role as our operations. I really did feel like I could find some passion. And funny enough, when she came on board in this role, I was able to launch this what we're hanging out here doing only was able to happen because all of the day-to-day, all of the things that, you know, I stopped developing the team. It was more like, hey, I can be on sales calls, but I'm doing just all of the stuff, and it became way more fulfilling. I like started to refine my passion in this work.
Yeah, Dan Sullivan, who built Strategic Coach, calls it finding your unique ability area, right? And the key thing is to get all the stuff that you're incompetent and competent off your plate, right? The stuff you suck at or you're okay at, get that off your plate. Then there's a bunch of stuff that we tend to do as entrepreneurs that we might be really good at, but we don't love it. It doesn't feed us, right? I love doing media interviews. I love networking. I love coaching, and I love speaking. Outside of that, I'm really good at a lot of stuff. I've built 4 companies, 3 that you know the names of. I've coached big entrepreneurs, but those 4 things feed me. I would do this for free, except my kids have to eat. Well, actually, I am doing it for free because I'm launching a book. But you know what I'm saying? Like, my day today is filled with all my unique ability stuff. If you saw my calendar, it's really busy, but it's like, I would like, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes, go for dinner with friends. But then there were other days, years and years ago, when I was building my company, that was like, I was grinding it. grinding it. At the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to go for dinner with anybody. I don't even want to eat a bowl of soup. I'm just exhausted. That's not fun.
That's so interesting. 10X filmmaker, we kind of have like, there's different stages to the success path, and it's like a mountain, right? Because Studio Sherpas is the whole mountain theme. It's so funny because when you start your business, you're down here, you're at base camp, and then you make the trek, and it's a grind. You're pushing, you're climbing. It's like, okay, and you get some wins, you get some losses, whatever. You finally get maybe to a peak or a summit or whatever, and then you come back down, and like the other side is like, you just want to get back to a place where you're doing what you started, right? Where you're creating, you're spending time, like the passion is there. So it's so interesting that we have to go through this journey of like, starting with a passion, and then it grows into all of the other things that we don't care about, that we don't want to do. And then we fight through that, hopefully long enough to where we can get back to the place that where we come to life and really
as the
love.
Entrepreneur, here's what's interesting about the entrepreneur. We get to make the rules because it's our business. If we're going to be like the fly and we're going to work hard, and we're going to try to get out the window, and we keep working hard till we get, the flies all end up dead on the windowsill. We need to stop and go, wait, there's a door over here. I'll just turn and go out the door. Let me take the shortcut, right? So that's one. I think about the game. Good. You've played the game Monopoly. When you get to go and you collect $200 and you got to avoid jail, and then you get to free parking. And well, imagine if, as the entrepreneur, you create a board game called Monopoly, and every time that anybody goes around Go, they collect $200, but you get to collect $2,000. Every time anybody lands in jail, they have to stay, but you as the owner get to bypass jail. Anytime anybody lands on free parking, they collect the cash in the middle, but you as the entrepreneur, anytime you get near it, get to scoop the cash. And you start the game with Boardwalk and Park Place and some hotels on. It's like, that is being the entrepreneur. That's why we started this, is to have, so what I want people to remember is, you report to you. The only reason you're doing the work that's draining you is because you're choosing not to delegate it. You get to, and by the way, we don't have to hire people based in the US or Canada anymore. We can get, my assistant has an assistant who's based in the Philippines for $6 an hour. That's $12,000 a year for a full-time employee. It's irresponsible not to look for freelancers, right?
Yes to all of that. Man, that's so good.
Dude, my son has worked on 4 film sets out of a bunch that he's done for free for multiple days, just to put it on his LinkedIn resume and his personal resume that he's done this stuff. Like, hire freelancers, hire them to do PA stuff for you, hire them to do some marketing. They're going to say hell yes. And then treat them well, give them a good reference, give them a high five, buy them lunch, and they're going to be thrilled.
I think there's a lot of, that's the best advice. I mean, you report to you get to, not that you have to, like all that stuff. It's so good. Like, just, I'm like drinking the Kool-Aid. There's still a fear that holds the filmmaker, the corporate commercial filmmaker back, because it's like, man, how much is this going to cost? Like, I don't have money to pay somebody to come on to be my second in command. That sounds expensive. And it just sounds like another expense. Like, where am I going to find the money to make this happen?
I learned this from an entrepreneur in a mastermind group a few years ago, which amazed me that I was like 20 years into running my own companies and I didn't understand this concept. I said, I can't afford to hire a $200,000 salesperson. He said, Cameron, you're not paying them $200,000 tomorrow. You're paying them $18,000 a month for 12 months. I'm like, okay, keep going. He goes, you're paying them $9,000 every 2 weeks. I'm like, ah. He goes, you're paying them $4,500 for next week. Ah. How much could they sell next week if you help them and coach them? I'm like, probably 20 grand. I'm like, ooh, if I can help them make 20 grand and it costs me 4,500, I win. But we often get so, like, I can't afford the $40,000 a year assistant. You're not paying her $40,000 right now. You're going to pay her $3,500 a month. So you're only like, when you run the numbers like that, you're like, wow, if I can pay her $1,000 this week, how much time does that free up for me to go and generate more, to sell more, or to have a life, right? What's my life worth? And there's some value there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of value. I think one of the other struggles that why people aren't in this place, even if they did have time freed up, people struggle with like finding new clients. But I think bigger than that, they really struggle with valuing what we offer. So,
well, there's another
brand
struggle.
film.
There's another struggle as well. Yeah, we need to raise our prices. We all need to charge more and value what we do a lot more. Everyone listening, raise your prices by 30 to 40%. The day that I started at 1-800-GOT-JUNK 22 years ago, I raised prices across all 12 franchises by 40%. Brian thought I was crazy, but I'm like, dude, you're not making money. Franchisees aren't making money. Right. Guys in the trucks aren't making money. And we can't even deliver on our promises to our customers because we don't have any money. And we can't afford any marketing because we don't have any money. So we're either going to go bankrupt because we don't have any money, or we're going to go bankrupt because we're going to charge 40% more. But we're going to be the FedEx of junk removal, the Starbucks of junk removal. We're going to be a premium price, and we're going to deliver. We did, and it worked. Here's another reason, though, why people don't delegate more and they don't hire people and they do it themselves, is because they're afraid of who they see in the mirror, and they're afraid of their own free time. And they get fed with this energy of building a company and being important because they don't have a good relationship with their kids or their spouse or their friends. And they're only being fed by this dopamine of doing it themselves that they've lost sight of the hobbies they used to have as a kid. And I think we really need to connect with the whole, we're all going to die. We're all just walking each other home. Work on your relationships, work on your stuff with your spouse and your kids, figure out your bucket list, find some hobbies again. Because if your hobby is work, I'll tell you what, you don't want to go to a cocktail party this weekend and listen to a bunch of people talking about their passions, which are selling insurance and lawyers and accountants. If that's their passions, like, kill me now, right? I don't want to hear about your hobby being filmmaking either. My son does, but I don't, and nobody wants to hear about me building the COO Alliance. Like, I had a friend here last night and she asked me about my book. I'm like, I don't want to talk about my book. I want to talk about like our trips and where we're traveling.
Yeah. Dude, oh man, that is gold right there. Yeah. We should just end. I don't want to. We're not going to. But that's a really important point, man. And that's really what I'm after. Like, kind of this Sherpa's success path. You know, we get to the summit, and the summit is there's freedom, right? It's like you're not required in the business. You can have a new beginning. You can realize, like, man, I can do what do I want to do? Do I want to do a passion project? Do I want to get out of filmmaking? Do I want to start a junk removal company? Like, what is the thing that would get me so fired up? But if we wait until we get there to say, okay, like, then I'll start my hobby, then I'll do my thing, then I'll spend time with my man. That's just life. Here's the
other one that I want everyone who's listening to remember. If you tell yourself, I'm just going to work a few nights to catch up, you're not going to catch up, because you're just going to add more projects, get more clients, hire more people, build something bigger. Or I'm just going to work this weekend to catch up. You're not going to catch up. Stop working at 5:30 every day. Shut it down. Allow yourself one night per month to actually catch up on some work, and allow yourself one weekend day per month to actually work on some stuff. But get a life, get some hobbies, get reconnected with people and what's important, and it'll force you to delegate more. Your to-do list, it needs to get done, but not by us, right? Or it needs to be done, but not this month or not today. Go to the gym, go hang out with your family, go hang out with yourself, have lunch, go for dinner with your spouse, and leave your cell phone at home.
I want to know, I'm curious, fractional COO. I've heard this. It sounds very alluring, especially like I'm personally in a unique spot with my business where I have somebody who's in this role, very part-time, but man, I think there's a part of me that would love to have like an actual somebody who's been a COO of a company come into our business, look at how we're operating and say like, oh, dude, like, okay, lots of inefficiencies here. We need to tweak this process. We need to so that they could set either my current person who's in the ops role up better, or we can just say like, you know what, this is really what we need the business to be doing right now.
So the term fractional anything is something that's really come about in the last 15 to 20 years. And here's why. Prior to 2000, we didn't have Wi-Fi. We really didn't, most people weren't using laptops. I remember starting at 1-800-GOT-JUNK in October 2000. I walked in with a laptop and Brian goes, "What are you going to do? Carry that from meeting to meeting?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." And that day at 2:00, he went to Future Shop and bought a laptop and came back. I'm like, "Dude, you're ridiculous." But so having a laptop, having Wi-Fi means that you can work anywhere, you can be anywhere. We now have the ability to do work remotely. We don't even have to go to the same place. And now because of COVID, having people remote is super popular. Second, Tim Ferriss's book that came out around 2008, 2009, around the 4-hour work week, talked about these fractional people and remote people using Upwork and Odesk and Hire My Mom and, cool websites from around the world. So that's powerful. So now we realize it needs to get done, but if I don't have 40 or 50 hours a week for somebody, and I don't even want them coming to my damn office, or I don't even have a darn office for them to come to, I need to get these 7 things done, and they only add up to 12 hours. Great, pay me 12 hours. And there's tons of really great, talented people that either just want to work in their zone of genius, and they'll do 10 hours for you, 10 hours for somebody else, 10 hours for somebody else, and they don't have to come to all the stupid meetings, and they don't get reply all and CC'd, right? They don't get bogged down in all the corporate crap, and they get to work just in their zone of genius. That's where the freelancers or fractional people can be powerful. Well, think about the film industry. You need to have like a lighting guy on every set, but you don't need a lighting guy 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year.
Right.
What's he going to do when you're not on the set, right? To hang out and like come to meetings? Like, I don't want your advice on strategy, lighting guy. So you got fractional lighting guys and fractional grips and fractional whatevers, fractional marketers, fractional CFOs, fractional CMO. It's just the same.
Yeah. Paint the picture. Small video production company, 2 to 3 people full time. They have some assistants, some admin assistants, maybe a person that's doing some project management for them. What's the best case scenario? Like if they were to bring in a fractional COO, like what could that person help them discover, do?
I wouldn't bring in a fractional COO. I would bring in like
me either. That's terrible.
I would bring like a fractional director of operations or a fractional project manager to help get a bunch of stuff done and move projects along and manage the day-to-day. The only thing, like, as you get into a C-level title, it's strategy that we bring to the table. So you might be able to bring in a fractional COO who's going to work with you on strategic planning or strategic thinking for your business, visualizing what your company is going to look like, helping you understand how to bring in a course program or how to market into different communities or how to take your content and replicate it in multiple ways. I don't know. You could find somebody who can see some overhead and turn it into revenue opportunities. You could hire your full-time video person who you only need 12 hours a week, but then you sell that video person's time out to other companies and you turn them into little micro businesses. So each expense becomes a micro business. That's where strategy meets operations. So you could get somebody to help you with those things, right? To see the business, kind of to help you see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super good, super smart. Tell me, or tell us more, the COO Alliance. Like, what is that?
Yeah, the COO Alliance is really the only mastermind of its kind in the world for the second in command, right? There's thousands of groups for entrepreneurs. You're starting a group off for filmmaking businesses. There's groups for lawyers and engineers and doctors, but there was no real mastermind community for this second in command. So we started it off. You need at least 5 million or greater in revenue to qualify. Our average size client's 42 million. We've got members from 17 countries, and we do 2 in-person events a year. A live event over Zoom every month for 3 hours every month. And then we have a closed private Slack group that they all interact with each other in between events.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say like, oh yeah, it's a bunch of like COOs that are just waiting to work at a company just like yours, Ryan.
Yeah, we don't recruit from it, but we are launching a community this year where it'll be a closed private Facebook community. It'll only be $1,200 approximately a year, and we'll have more director of ops level people in that community. But again, it won't be a recruiting pool.
Yeah.
Because the CEO is paying for them to be a member. We can't really recruit them away.
Right. Yeah. Awkward.
Yeah, join our mastermind. We can help you lead your key person in 2 months or less.
2 months or less. Oh, wow, that's great. That's so fast. What am I not asking here? I know this book, I'm sure, is jam-packed with so much goodness, but what else are we not covering here that we should be?
I think you've really covered it. For the size organizations that we're speaking to, I think we've done a really good job. I think, as the company scales, it's how do you bring in the external hire above a bunch of current people where there's an art and a science to that, right? How do you build the relationship and trust? How do you transition someone out would be something. Like, how do you fire that really great person and then bring on the next good one? That's just lead with empathy, right? Remember that really great person who's come to the end of their tenure. It doesn't mean they're a bad human. So you got to remember that you got to now help them exit clean. And you just do that in the right way. My ex-wife and I have an amazing relationship together. It was just the first chapter of our marriages. It didn't have to be a horrible ending.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I think even part of that, you mentioned it earlier, it's when you have your core values defined and you hire and you fire by your core values and live those out, letting somebody go, leading with empathy, should be, somewhat tied to core values of yours. That it does make a lot more sense in a lot healthy. I mean, so many of the people that have worked for me full time that don't anymore, we text, we're friends, we hire them for stuff. There's health there because I was for them. I was for them before they started working for me, and I want to be for them after.
So you just touched on something that we can kind of probably wrap with is, I think every company should flip the org chart upside down, almost like an inverted pyramid. So the CEO or the entrepreneur is at the bottom of the org chart, supporting and growing and holding up their managers who are supporting and growing their employees, who are supporting and growing the customers. And you build the company inside your core purpose and your core values, right? Yeah. That's the way you don't hold people accountable, you hire accountable people. You don't manage people, you grow them.
Oh yeah, I see why I wanted in there.
It's good,
That's really good. Cameron, man, I so this is great. You need to come out with more books so we can podcast together more. This is very, very just very good.
Thank you.
I so appreciate your heartbeat and the work that you're doing. Congrats on the new book. I hope it is a smashing success. I will pre-order my copy, I think, right when we get off this call. But thank you for your generosity and hanging out with our community today. Really, really, really do appreciate it.
Hey, Ryan, you're welcome. Thank you. Super appreciative. Send me the link when this goes live. I want to share this with my son and also with my communities online too.
Will do for sure. Where can people get the book, and then where can they follow you online and just know all of your happenings?
Yeah, so all of my books are available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. Another great book that anyone listening would want is The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs that I co-authored with Hal Elrod, is really strong for this segment of listener as well. And then check out my course, investinyourleaders.com as well. Super powerful leadership skills that anybody managing people will benefit from.
I love it. Awesome. Thanks, brother. Really appreciate it. And again, good luck with the launch.
Same. Thank you.
All right, friend, if you enjoyed this episode or you heard something that you want to hear again or get access to some of the links or things that we talked about, you can get access to all of that stuff by going to studiosherpas.com/322. If you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook and you have a takeaway, something that stood out, something that you're going to do as a result of this episode, I would love to hear what that is for you. That would be awesome. I would like to highlight a recent review that someone left on the podcast. This person's name is Him00. This is a 5-star review. And it says, been listening ever since I found it. This is my go-to podcast for my video business. Really appreciate the information shared. Very helpful. Him00, thank you so much for your review. I do so appreciate hearing from you. And if you like this show and you want to leave a review, please do. I invite you to do that. And you should be able to click around somewhere on your podcast app to do that. I would appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here with me. I am grateful to have you along this journey, and I look forward to being with you next week. If you want access to the 6-Figure Filmmaker Workshop, don't forget you can get free access to that at studiosherpas.com/workshop. Until next time, my friend, onward and upward, and I'll talk to you really soon. See ya.